Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I'm Malcolm, 38 years old, currently living in the vibrant city of New York. I'm married, and we have a young daughter. Our family lives in a spacious, elegant penthouse, a gift from my wife, Oriana, who purchased it 2 years ago. She's a woman of both stunning beauty and remarkable talent, the kind of person who leaves everyone in awe the moment she enters a room. Confident, brilliant, effortlessly poised, people naturally gravitate toward her. Our daughter, Elena, just turned 4 this year. She's as lovely as an angel, with sparkling round eyes and an innocent smile that can melt away any sorrow. She lights up every corner of our home with her laughter. I don't have an office job like most men I know. Instead, I stay at home, dedicating all my time and energy to caring for and raising Elena. It's not a side role, it's my full-time life. Every morning, I brew fresh coffee, make breakfast just the way she likes it, scrambled eggs with toast cut into stars, and take her to preschool, hand in hand. The rest of my day is devoted to her. When she's home, we play together. I sit cross-legged on the floor while she builds towers with her blocks or makes up stories with her dolls. Sometimes she'll say, "Daddy, look, this is Queen Elena. She has superpowers." And I'll play along, bowing deeply and saying, "Your Majesty, may I request your assistance to defeat the evil broccoli tonight?" She giggles every time. I listen to all her stories, no matter how tangled or wild. I watch her eyes light up when she remembers something exciting, or how her little brow furrows when she's puzzled by something. At night, I read her bedtime stories, fairy tales, animal adventures, sometimes just made-up stories she insists I invent. I hold her close, let her tiny hand rest on mine as her eyelids begin to flutter closed. A lot of people think what I do is simple, that staying at home is somehow easier, softer, not as important. But for me, being with Elena and watching her grow day by day is the greatest happiness of my life. 10 years ago, I was working in finance, deep in the thick of Wall Street. It consumed me, long hours, high stakes, constant motion. And I loved it. I thrived in that chaos, the adrenaline rush when the market spiked or dipped. The power of making decisions that moved numbers on screens and impacted real portfolios. It was thrilling. Then I met Oriana. She was a whirlwind. Intelligent, charming, sharp-witted, with an ambition that could cut through steel. We were equals in drive, though different in our ambitions. When we married, she was in the early stages of building her own company, a tech startup, brimming with potential and energy. I admired her. Still do. Watching her fight to turn her dreams into reality, there's nothing quite like it. When Elena was born, we had to make a choice. One of us had to step back, someone needed to be there full-time. Oriana looked at me one evening across the kitchen island, eyes tired but burning with focus. "I can't give up on this now, Malcolm. Not when it's finally starting to happen," she said softly. I nodded. "I know, and I don't want you to." We didn't need to say more. I chose to step back, not because I was weak, not because I was giving up, but because I wanted her to shine. I wanted her to have her moment without worrying about who would pick up Elena from preschool or what we were having for dinner. Quitting my job wasn't easy. Some nights, after Elena had fallen asleep and Oriana was still at the office, I'd sit alone in the living room, the lights dimmed, the city buzzing faintly outside the windows. I'd stare at the skyline and wonder, am I losing myself? There were the looks from friends, the raised eyebrows at dinner parties. "So what do you do now?" someone would ask, wine glass in hand. "I stay home with my daughter," I'd reply, trying to keep my voice even. "Oh, that's nice." And then they'd shift away, already more interested in someone else. Sometimes, the weight of it all pressed down on me. The subtle judgment. The feeling that I'd become invisible. That I'd traded sharp suits and market briefs for snack bags and nap schedules. But then Elena would come running into the room, her arms flung wide, her voice full of joy. "Daddy, tell me a story." And all my doubts would vanish. I reminded myself this was my choice. I chose this life for my family, for love. I stepped back so Oriana could soar. And she did. Her success has exceeded all expectations. Her company is now a major name in the tech world, and every time I see her mentioned in articles or introduced at conferences, I feel proud. Deeply proud. She made it, and I've always believed in her. But success, I've learned, comes at a cost. Oriana has become increasingly busy. The dinners we used to share, just the 3 of us around the table, Elena giggling with food on her cheeks, Oriana recounting her day, those have grown rare. Now, most evenings it's just me and Elena, and an empty seat at the head of the table. She travels a lot. Some trips are only for a couple of days, others stretch into the week. I don't complain. I never have. I know the kind of pressure she's under, The expectations, the weight of running something so big. So I try to do my part. I keep the apartment clean, warm, inviting a place she can return to and breathe in peace. But lately, I've started to notice things. Small things. Oriana's grown distant. She used to call during her breaks, just to say hi or ask about Elena. How was drop-off this morning? She'd say, her voice cheerful through the phone. Did Elena remember her lunchbox today? But those calls stopped. Now I get texts. Short ones. Super busy. Talk later. I tell myself it's nothing. Just work. Just stress. But a sense of unease has started curling in my chest, tighter with each day. One night, when she returned from a trip, I asked casually, "You've been going to Stanford a lot lately. Is something big happening out there?" She barely paused before replying, "Just meetings with partners." Her voice was slightly hurried, almost clipped. Then she changed the subject. Did Elena finally finish that giraffe puzzle? I wanted to believe her. I still want to believe her. She's always been strong, always carried so much. She's human too, right? Maybe she just doesn't have the energy to talk like she used to. But even Elena has started to notice. "Why is Mommy gone so long, Daddy?" she asked me the other night, her tiny voice soft, her eyes big and questioning. I didn't know how to answer. I knelt beside her and hugged her tight. "Mommy's working hard to buy you toys," I said, trying to keep my voice light. She smiled, wrapping her arms around my neck. "Then I want to give her a hug when she comes back." That broke me a little. In the evenings now, I play music while I make dinner. Soft jazz or oldies, something to make the space feel less silent. I dance with Elena in the kitchen sometimes, spinning her in circles just to hear her laugh. But no matter what I do, a quiet emptiness hangs in the air. I miss her. I miss us. One night, Oriana had left her phone on the counter. She rarely does that. I told myself I just wanted to check her travel schedule to see when she'd be back, so I could surprise her with her favorite dinner, maybe light a candle or two, try to bring back one of those old evenings. I opened her calendar, then her messages. A text from an unsaved number caught my eye. "Meet you in Stanford 8 p.m. My heart stopped. I stared at it for a long moment, everything inside me turning cold. Then I told myself it was probably just a business partner. Just a meeting. Nothing more. I had no right to pry. I had no proof. I didn't want to be that kind of husband, suspicious, controlling, paranoid. That's not who I am. That's not who we are. I locked the phone, put it exactly where it was, and stepped away. Promised myself I wouldn't overthink it. But the feeling hasn't gone away. It's like a small crack in glass, barely visible at first, but slowly, steadily spreading. Each day, it widens just a little more. I've started noticing other things. Little things. A new perfume on Oriana's clothes, not one I've smelled before. The subtle floral note clinging to her jacket when she walks through the door. Or how she recently changed her phone password. She never mentioned it. She used to hand me her phone all the time to check messages or directions while she drove, but now it's always locked. And when I bring up work, when I ask how her meetings are going, she doesn't meet my eyes anymore. Her gaze shifts to her phone, to the window, to Elena. I try to brush it off. Tell myself I'm being paranoid, that I'm reading too much into things. But my heart, it won't let go. It whispers in the quiet moments, in the pauses between words, that something's not right. I love Oriana deeply. That hasn't changed. But this creeping gut feeling, it's hard to ignore. Then, one morning, as I was buttering toast for Elena and brewing her favorite vanilla milk, an idea came to me. A small, spontaneous spark. What if I surprised Oriana in Stanford? Just me and Elena. A short trip. Nothing dramatic, just a warm gesture. A reminder that we're here. That we're still a family. I imagine the scene in my mind. Oriana stepping out of the hotel elevator, her eyes widening with delight when she sees us. Elena running up to her, arms wide. Oriana's laughter, genuine and bright like it used to be. Maybe even a tear of joy. The three of us embracing like we hadn't in too long. The thought filled me with something I hadn't felt in weeks, hope. I began to plan. Carefully, quietly. I wanted it to be perfect. I bought a necklace. Silver. Simple, but elegant, Oriana's style. On the back, I had engraved our names. Malcolm, Oriana, Elena. I wanted it to be something she could wear close to her heart. A gentle reminder of what we've built together. What we still are. Elena was thrilled when I told her. "Can I make a picture for Mommy?" she asked, already reaching for her crayons. "Of course," I said, laying out her art supplies on the table. She spent nearly an hour on it, a bright drawing of the three of us standing under a big, colorful rainbow, with hearts in the sky and her name scrawled at the top. "Mommy will love it, right, Daddy?" she asked, holding it up with pride, her little fingers smudged with paint. I ruffled her hair gently and smiled. "Absolutely, sweetheart. She's going to love it." I checked Oriana's travel schedule, which I still had access to through the shared calendar she rarely used anymore. She'd be in Stanford for 4 days, staying at the same familiar hotel she often mentioned. I called her to confirm nothing urgent, just a simple hey, just wanted to say hi, but she didn't pick up. I sent a quick text. No reply. Another one. Still nothing. A flicker of worry crossed my mind. She's probably in a meeting, I told myself. Back-to-back calls. It's nothing. I didn't want suspicion to ruin the plan. I wanted this to be a gesture of love, not accusation. I held on tightly to that belief this would be the moment we reconnected. The next morning, I got everything ready. I packed the car, the necklace in a velvet box, Elena's drawing folded carefully inside a folder, snacks for the road, Elena's favorite blanket in case she fell asleep on the way. I even made sure to bring the stuffed bear she never goes anywhere without. Elena sat in the back seat, legs swinging, singing softly to herself. Her teddy bear clutched in one hand, the drawing in the other. Daddy, Mommy's going to be so surprised, right? She asked, her eyes wide with excitement. I glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Her innocence, her joy, it melted something in me. Yeah, I said, smiling. Mommy's going to love it. But even as I said the words, a trace of unease began to stir inside me. I pressed the gas pedal, leaving New York behind, heading toward Stanford unaware that this trip would change everything. The city faded in the rearview mirror, and with each passing mile, my heart grew heavier. I tried calling Oriana a few more times during the drive. Her phone rang, then went silent. No voicemail, no message, just the dull emptiness of a call gone unanswered. I told myself, she's probably in an important meeting. Busy, focused, but the thought didn't stick. That heavy feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. It sat there, pressing deeper, spreading like that crack in the glass. Beside me, Elena sang softly, kicking her feet, completely oblivious to the knot forming in my stomach. Her voice was sweet and full of joy, but all I could feel was dread, like I was driving into a storm I didn't want to face. By the time we arrived in Stanford, dusk was settling in. The sky had darkened to a soft purple, and the streets were lined with glowing streetlights. The hotel stood tall and elegant, lit up like a beacon. I parked the car, shut off the engine, and sat there for a moment, just breathing. Elena reached out and took my hand. Come on, Daddy, she said, her voice eager. Let's give Mommy her surprise. I nodded and forced a smile. Yes, sweetie. Let's go. We walked into the lobby, hand in hand. My heart was pounding not from the walk, but from the weight of something I couldn't name. The receptionist looked up and smiled as we approached. Good evening. How can I help you? I'm here to see my wife, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Oriana Collins. She's staying here. She nodded politely and began typing. Her fingers paused briefly, then her eyes flicked up at me, cautious, almost uncertain. Ms. Collins is in room 512, she said. But she has someone with her. My heart stopped. Someone with her, I repeated, trying to understand, even though I already knew. She didn't answer, just nodded again, her face giving nothing more. A cold chill spread through me. I looked down at Elena, who was still smiling, holding her picture proudly. I squeezed her hand a little tighter. Come on, sweetie, I said. Let's go see Mommy. The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt like an eternity. Each floor crawled by, each ding of the elevator a hammer to my chest. Elena hummed beside me, swinging her arms, her teddy bear tucked under one arm, the drawing clutched in her hand. When we stepped out onto the 5th floor, I felt like I was walking underwater. My legs were heavy, every sound muted and distant. Room 512 was just down the hall. I could see the number on the door like it had been etched into my fate. I walked to it slowly, with Elena beside me. I held the gift box in one hand, the necklace inside wrapped with care. She clutched her picture like it was the most precious thing in the world. I took a deep breath, and I knocked. The door opened, and I froze. There stood Oriana. Her hair was tousled, her nightgown barely covering her. Her eyes went wide not with joy or surprise, but with panic. Behind her stood a man. His shirt was unbuttoned, hanging open. He held a glass of wine in his hand. He looked at me, then at Elena, his brows narrowing like we'd just broken into something private. Like we were the ones out of place. Elena looked up at her mother, beaming. Mommy. Her voice was bright, so bright, but to me, it sounded like glass shattering across marble floors. Malcolm, Oriana stammered. She grabbed the robe from the back of the door and pulled it on hastily. What? Why are you here? She snapped, her voice sharp, accusatory. Not apologetic. Not even surprised. Angry. As if I had done something wrong. I wanted to scream. I wanted to step forward, demand answers, shout every question that had been eating me alive. But then I felt Elena's small hand in mine. She was looking up at me with those wide, confused eyes. Daddy, she said quietly. I looked down at her, and I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay calm. Elena and I wanted to surprise you, I said quietly, the words catching in my throat. but it looks like I'm the one surprised. The man beside her stepped forward, extending a hand as if this was just another casual meeting. I'm Dylan, he said. Oriana's business partner. You are. He hesitated, glancing sideways at Oriana, clearly expecting some kind of introduction, some context. I stared at his hand, my pulse thudding in my ears. Business partner, I repeated, my voice trembling. I looked directly at him, then at Oriana. I'm her husband. And this, I said, motioning toward Elena, who was still holding her picture, is our daughter. Dylan's face drained of color. He turned sharply to Oriana. Husband? Oriana, you told me you were single. His voice rose in disbelief, teetering on a shout. Oriana stepped back, pressing her hand to her forehead, as though the pressure of the situation were merely an inconvenience. I waited. I waited for her to say something, to explain, to apologize, to even show a flicker of guilt. But she just let out a long exhale, her eyes narrowing with irritation. Don't make a scene, Malcolm, she snapped. Showing up like this? Embarrassing me in front of my partner. Her voice was cold, sharp, calculated. What do you want? The words sliced through me like glass. I barely registered Elena's gasp, but I heard the soft flutter as her drawing slipped from her hands and landed on the floor between us. I knelt down beside her immediately, pulling her into my arms. She was trembling. It's okay, I whispered, brushing her hair back, pressing my lips to her forehead. Daddy's here. But inside, I was falling apart. My world, the world I'd protected, the one I'd built around love and sacrifice, was collapsing, brick by brick. Dylan shook his head, stepping back and grabbing his jacket. I'm not getting involved in this drama, he muttered, his face twisted with disgust. Oriana, deal with it yourself. He brushed past me, barely meeting my eyes, and disappeared through the door without another word. I stood up slowly, my eyes fixed on Oriana. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out low and steady. Tell me, I said, is this your business trip? How long have you been lying? She crossed her arms, her chin lifting with defiance. There wasn't an ounce of shame in her posture. You want the truth, she spat. Fine. I'm tired of you, Malcolm. Tired of this life. Tired of feeling suffocated every time I see your face. The words landed like blows. You think I need this? She went on, stepping closer. A husband who just stays home, mopping floors and playing with our kid. That was all I was to her. The man who made breakfast, who held our daughter's hand, who gave up a career so she could chase hers, reduced to some resentful label. I thought of the apartment, the home I poured myself into, the room I repainted for Elena, the laughter we once shared as newlyweds, building a life together, even if it wasn't perfect. I thought of the nights I waited, the meals I cooked, the effort I made, all of it. And now, all of it meant nothing to her. I turned to Elena, still wide-eyed, standing in the doorway like a forgotten ornament in this wreckage. Elena, wait for Daddy on the chair out there, I said gently. Okay, she whispered. I handed her the teddy bear, kissed her cheek, and closed the door behind her. I turned back to Oriana. She was sitting on the edge of the bed now, one leg crossed over the other, her eyes cool and dispassionate. Are you done? She asked. Malcolm, go home. I'll come back later. I shook my head slowly. The pain was gone, replaced now by something else. Something sharper, steadier. No, Oriana. It's over, I said. I can't live with someone who doesn't respect me. Who doesn't respect Elena? She scoffed, pushing herself up from the bed and stepping toward me. Over? Fine. But you'll regret this. Her voice dropped, eyes burning with venom. You're nothing without me, Malcolm. Without me, you're just a failure. I left the room clutching the unopened gift, the necklace still in its velvet box, a symbol of something that no longer existed. Elena sat on the chair outside, hugging her bear tightly, her little legs swinging off the edge, eyes red and puffy. Is Mommy upset, Daddy? She asked softly, looking up at me. I knelt in front of her and pulled her into my arms, fighting back the sting in my eyes. Mommy's just tired, sweetie, I whispered. Come on, let's go home. But I knew the truth. Home, the one I had fought to protect, to nurture, was now just me and Elena. The days that followed blurred into a slow-motion nightmare. Oriana came back, but not with apologies or explanations. No remorse. No shame. She walked in dragging her suitcase behind her, like a guest returning from a weekend trip, not a wife returning to a family she had betrayed. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Elena ran to her with joy and open arms. Mommy, she squealed. Oriana barely glanced down, patting her head like she was brushing off an obligation before heading straight to the bedroom. The door closed behind her. I stood in the kitchen, hands submerged in soap and water, scrubbing dishes just to stay grounded, just to keep from screaming. I had made up my mind. I would file for divorce. Not because I no longer loved her, that love was still buried somewhere under the wreckage, but because I couldn't let Elena grow up in a house where love meant silence and betrayal, where marriage meant lies and insults. I wouldn't let that become her definition of family. That night, after Elena had gone to sleep, I sat across from Oriana at the dining table. The apartment was still. The only sound was the slow ticking of the clock on the wall, steady, indifferent. "We need to talk," I said. Oriana didn't even look up at first. She raised an eyebrow, sipping her wine, her lipstick smudged on the rim of the glass. "Talk about what?" "About how you ruined my meeting in Stanford," she snapped. "You're so childish, Malcolm." I clenched my fists under the table. The fury boiled beneath my skin, but I kept my voice even. I wouldn't let her provoke me. "Stop pretending," I said. "I know everything, and I want a divorce." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. There was no sadness in it, only venom. "Divorce?" she sneered. "How do you think you'll survive?" She stood up, setting the wine glass down with a loud clink. "You have nothing, Malcolm. No job, no money, nothing. You're just a leech, living off me." I stared at her in disbelief. "You think the court will give you anything?" "Elena." She laughed again, crueler this time. "Don't dream." She pointed a finger at me, stepping forward. "You want to play this game? Fine. I'll leave you with nothing. This apartment, the bank accounts, everything is mine. You'll be out on the street, Malcolm, and I won't give you a cent." Each word hit harder than the last. I thought of the years I had given up, the late nights I held Elena when she had fevers, the meals I cooked while Oriana worked late, the birthday parties I planned, the bedtime stories, the scraped knees, the tears I wiped away. I had endured the judgmental looks, the dismissive comments, the feeling of being unseen. I had stayed silent for Elena, for the family I believed in. But now, I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just looked at her, my voice low. "Fine, Oriana. If you want a divorce, I'll do it. But you'll regret this decision." She stepped closer, her breath heavy with the sharp tang of wine. Her eyes were blazing, no longer even pretending to hold back. "Who do you think you are?" she hissed. "A hero? You're just a failed house husband. I'm sick of seeing you mop floors, cook meals like some servant. I need a real man, like Dylan, not a weakling like you." My heart tightened, but I didn't let her see it. I stood there, holding her gaze. "You're wrong, Oriana," I said calmly. "I'm not weak, and you'll find out soon enough." She burst into bitter laughter, tossing her head back. "Find out." "Find out what?" she scoffed. "That you'll be left with nothing? That you've been leeching off your wife this whole time?" She crossed her arms and sneered. "Go ahead, Malcolm. File for divorce. I'll sign it right away. We each keep our assets. Easy because you have nothing." Then she turned away, walking into the bedroom like she'd won something, like I was just some temporary annoyance finally out of the way. And I stood there, alone, in what used to be our home. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, the city lights flickering through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Elena's drawing, the one she'd made with such joy, lay on the table, one corner torn, a rainbow smudged. I stared at it, thinking of her future, of what kind of father I wanted to be, what kind of example I needed to set. Oriana might think I'm useless. She might laugh at the man who stayed behind to raise a child. But she didn't know the truth. And now, she would. I had never told Oriana my secret. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I had wanted to protect her, to let her shine without feeling burdened. When I left Wall Street, I didn't abandon everything I loved. I never could. I loved the markets. I loved the strategy, the rhythm, the thrill of it all. So I kept going quietly, in the background. Every day, while Elena napped or after I tucked her into bed, I studied. I tracked trends, tested models, learned new systems. I started investing with the little savings I had left after leaving my job, small, calculated moves. Over time, it grew and grew. Now, my portfolio was worth over $10 million. Real wealth. Quiet, patient, earned. Enough for Elena and me to live 100 lives. I never told Oriana because I didn't want her to feel overshadowed. I knew how much pride she took in being the breadwinner, in building something from the ground up. And I respected that. I admired it. I wanted to be her support, her safe place, the man she could rely on without fear of competition. But now that she called me a leech, that she betrayed me, that she looked our daughter in the eyes and still chose someone else, I had no reason to stay silent anymore. The next morning, I dressed quietly and left while Oriana was still asleep. Elena stayed with the neighbor, someone I trusted, someone who adored her. I didn't want her near the venom that was poisoning our home. I headed to a small cafe near the financial district. It was early, still quiet, but the air already hummed with the energy of the city. I took a seat in the back booth, waiting. And then Rose walked in. She hadn't changed. Confident, sharp-eyed, her posture straight like she still owned every room she entered. We had worked together back in the day. She'd left the high-speed chaos of Wall Street to practice law, and she was brilliant at it. One of the very few people who had seen both my drive and my depth. She spotted me and smiled. "Malcolm," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look like hell." I huffed a laugh. "It's been a week." "Talk to me," she said, leaning in. "What's going on?" And I did. I told her everything. Stanford, the man in the hotel room, Oriana's words, the venom she spat at me across our old dinner table. "She thinks I have nothing," I said, my voice bitter. "She wants a divorce. Each of us keeps our own assets. Because she believes I'm just a leech." Rose's expression didn't change. She just adjusted her glasses and tilted her head. "What about your investment portfolio?" she asked. "She knows nothing about it," I said, meeting her eyes. Rose nodded slowly. "You never told her." I wanted to surprise her. In my own way. Rose leaned back slightly, a slow smile forming. There was a glint of mischief in her eyes. "This is going to be an interesting divorce, Malcolm," Rose said, tapping her pen against the table. "If Oriana agrees to each keeping their own assets, she's shooting herself in the foot. But we need to prepare. Do you have proof of her affair?" I sat back, closing my eyes briefly. My mind flashed to that moment in the hotel. The panic in Oriana's eyes. The wine glass in Dylan's hand. And most of all, his voice. "You said you were single." "I have a witness," I said. "Dylan, the guy in Stanford. I'll find a way to contact him." Rose nodded, scribbling a note in her leather-bound pad. "Good. And Elena, do you want custody?" I didn't hesitate. "Elena is everything to me," I said firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes to have her with me." Rose gave a small, approving nod. She was quick and methodical, exactly who I needed in my corner. She drafted the divorce petition swiftly, her fingers dancing over the keyboard with purpose. As I requested, the petition proposed that each of us keep our own assets, a clause that looked fair, even generous. But I knew Oriana. I knew she'd jump at it, too proud and too arrogant to ask questions. She thought I had nothing. Rose also included my request for full custody of Elena, citing my role as her primary caregiver and Oriana's inappropriate conduct. "The court will consider this," she said, glancing up at me. "And with evidence of the affair, your clean financial independence, and the fact that you've been raising Elena, we have the upper hand." I signed the papers on a rainy afternoon. My hand trembled slightly as the pen met the paper, not from fear, but from the weight of finality. I had once dreamed of a future with Oriana, of the life we could build, of being that quiet support behind her success. But she had burned that future to ash, and I couldn't let Elena grow up thinking this version of love, fractured and cruel, was normal. I sent the signed papers to Oriana through her lawyer and waited. She didn't make me wait long. That same evening, my phone rang. Her name flashed on the screen. I answered. "Are you serious, Malcolm?" Oriana's voice was sharp and cold. I could hear the smugness dripping between her words. "Divorce? Fine. I agree. Keep our assets separate. Makes it easy for both of us." There it was. The trap. And she walked right into it. "But Elena." Her tone turned mocking. "You don't stand a chance. The court will see you for what you are, just a house husband. While I'm the breadwinner." I gripped the phone tighter, keeping my voice even. "Let the court decide, Oriana." She burst into laughter. A cruel, joyless sound. "Oh, I can't wait. You're going to lose everything, Malcolm. Everything. Get ready." She hung up. I stood in the living room, the weight of her words hanging in the air like smoke. Across the room, Elena sat on the floor, building a little house out of Legos. "Daddy, look at this," she called out, her face glowing with pride. I walked over and knelt beside her, wrapping my arms around her tiny shoulders. A wave of determination surged through me. This wasn't about money or revenge. I wasn't doing this to hurt Oriana. I was doing it for Elena, for her future. Oriana might think she held all the cards, but she had no idea how prepared I truly was. I got to work immediately. The first thing I did was contact the hotel in Stanford. I explained the situation, requested a formal record of Oriana's stay, and asked if they could provide hallway camera footage from that night. The receptionist, the same woman who had looked at me with quiet pity in the hotel lobby, agreed to be a witness if needed. "I remember your daughter," she told me over the phone, her voice gentle. "She was holding a drawing, right? Oriana definitely had someone in that room." I thanked her, grateful for her willingness to speak the truth. I also tracked down Dylan. It didn't take long. A quick search through LinkedIn and a few connections later, I found his business profile, a polished headshot, a list of Connecticut-based ventures, and a contact link. I messaged him cautiously, not knowing what to expect. He replied quicker than I anticipated. "I don't want trouble," he wrote. "Oriana told me she was single. I didn't know she had a husband. Or a kid." I didn't blame him. Dylan was just another piece in Oriana's web, someone caught in her charm, just like I once was. "I just need you to confirm the truth," I replied. "You won't have to testify. Just a statement." That's all. He agreed, on the condition that he wouldn't be dragged into court. I told him that was fine. His message alone, the timestamps, his words, they were enough. With every step, I felt stronger. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. This was clarity. I was no longer the man who scrubbed pots in silence while Oriana gallivanted across cities. I wasn't the placeholder husband, the background shadow in her success story. I was Malcolm, the man who once thrived on Wall Street, who knew strategy, who knew how to keep his cards hidden and play them at the exact right moment. But I didn't gloat. I didn't make threats. I let Oriana carry on believing I was weak. Let her dig. The night before we submitted the final petition to the court, I sat in the living room with a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. Elena was asleep in her room, her teddy bear tucked under her arm, the soft sound of her breathing filtering through the monitor. I logged in to check my portfolio. The numbers stared back at me, $12 million. Up slightly from last week. Quiet, calm, powerful. I thought of Oriana. Her sneer. Her voice when she called me a leech. A failure. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and looked out the window. New York shimmered below, alive with ambition and noise. It reminded me who I was and who I had never stopped being. The morning of the court hearing arrived gray and cool. I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my tie. My mother had come to stay the night, keeping Elena safe and happy while I faced what needed to be done. I didn't want her anywhere near that courtroom. Rose stood beside me in the waiting room, calm and razor-sharp, dressed in dark navy with her usual quiet authority. "Ready, Malcolm?" she asked, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "It's going to be a long day." I nodded. My heart was pounding, but not out of fear. I knew this was the day everything would change. The courtroom was cold, smelling of wood polish and paperwork. I took my seat. Across from me, Oriana walked in like she owned the room. She wore a perfectly tailored black suit, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Her hair was tied high, her expression blank. She didn't even glance my way. She leaned in to whisper something to her lawyer, a middle-aged man with rimless glasses and a smug face. Rose remained composed, flipping through her organized files, her gaze unblinking. The judge, an older woman with graying hair and tired eyes, entered the room and struck her gavel. "Let's begin," she said. Oriana's lawyer rose first. "Your Honor," he began, voice smooth, rehearsed, "my client, Ms. Oriana Collins, agrees to the divorce. We support the clause that each party retain their individual assets. Ms. Collins is the primary breadwinner, the founder and CEO of a technology company valued in the millions. Mr. Malcolm Turner, on the other hand, has no formal income and has been financially dependent on Ms. Collins for the duration of the marriage." He adjusted his glasses, barely looking at me. "Therefore, we respectfully request that custody of their daughter, Elena Turner, be granted to Ms. Collins. Mr. Turner may receive visitation rights at the court's discretion." I almost laughed. They painted me as a useless freeloader, a man living off scraps, but I stayed silent. Rose touched my arm lightly, a signal. "Wait, let them think they had won." Then she stood, her voice crisp and deliberate. "Your Honor," she began, "Mr. Malcolm Turner agrees to each party retaining their own assets as stipulated. However, we respectfully request that full custody of Elena Turner be granted to Mr. Turner, based on his role as her primary caregiver and Ms. Collins's inappropriate conduct." She let the last part hang in the air, just long enough. Inappropriate conduct. I saw Oriana's head snap toward Rose, her eyes blazing. Rose calmly continued, sliding neatly organized folders across the table to the judge's assistant. "We have here surveillance footage from the hotel and Stamford footage clearly showing Ms. Collins's guest entering and exiting her room after hours. We also have a signed statement from the hotel receptionist, confirming Ms. Collins's stay with another man during the period she claimed to be attending work meetings. Additionally, we have messages from this individual, Dylan Hayes, confirming that Ms. Collins led him to believe she was single and concealed the fact that she had a husband and child." Oriana's lawyer immediately objected. "Your Honor, we request time to." The judge held up her hand. "I will review the evidence." Objection noted. I sat still, watching Oriana's carefully crafted composure start to crack. She leaned in toward her lawyer, whispering furiously, her lips tight, her fingers gripping the table's edge. Her voice was too low to hear, but her panic was visible, undeniable. There was a strange mixture in my chest: pain, yes, a lingering ache for what we once were, but also relief, clarity. She had done this to herself, and now the truth had weight. Then Rose dropped the final card on the table. "Regarding assets," she said smoothly, "Mr. Turner does not contest Ms. Collins's property or business interests. However, contrary to Ms. Collins's claims of financial dependency, Mr. Turner has his own assets. Specifically, a personal stock portfolio valued at approximately $12 million, accumulated quietly over the past 10 years. She handed over a thick folder: bank statements, brokerage records, tax filings. Everything pristine. The room fell into stunned silence. Oriana's jaw fell open. She blinked, looking from the folder in the judge's hands to me, as if seeing me for the first time. Her lawyer grabbed the documents, flipping through them, muttering, "How did we not know about this?" For the first time since I walked into the courtroom, Oriana looked directly at me. Gone was the arrogance. Gone was the smirk. What stared back was pure shock. And something else: fear. "Malcolm," she stammered, her voice breaking. "You." She didn't get the chance to finish. The judge struck her gavel sharply. "Order in the court." Rose didn't flinch. "As stated," she said, her tone unwavering. "Mr. Turner is not seeking any share of Ms. Collins's assets. However, given his financial independence and his documented role as Elena's primary caregiver, we believe custody should be granted accordingly." "No," Oriana exploded, rising from her seat. "He tricked me. He hid this from me. I don't agree." Her lawyer tugged at her sleeve, pulling her back down, but she was already shaking with rage. The judge glared down from the bench. "Miss Collins, control yourself." Oriana sank into her chair, her eyes glassy, her cheeks flushed, her lip trembling. For the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just finality. This was what she had chosen: betrayal, contempt, arrogance, and this was the price. The hearing stretched on. Procedural back and forth. Clarifications. Review of documents. But the momentum had shifted. The judge listened attentively to Rose's summary of my role in Elena's life: the years of full-time parenting, school pickups, doctor visits, birthday planning, and compared it against Oriana's long absences, her affair, her own dismissive words in court. Finally, the judge adjusted her glasses, her tone clear and firm. "Custody of Elena Turner is hereby granted to Mr. Malcolm Turner," she said, "with Ms. Oriana Collins awarded visitation rights. Assets will remain separate, as agreed." Oriana collapsed into her chair, her hands covering her face. I heard her sobs, quiet at first, then broken and raw, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Not anymore. My thoughts were only of Elena, of the life we would now rebuild together. The pain still lingered, but I felt the first stirrings of peace, a fragile sense of control returning after so many months of confusion and betrayal. As Rose and I walked out of the courtroom, she placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Malcolm," she said quietly. I nodded, my lips tight. I didn't smile. This wasn't a moment of triumph. It was a necessary ending. I hadn't wanted Oriana to crumble, but she had made her choices, and now so had I. We stepped outside. The New York sunlight hit my face, warm and bright, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Really breathe. The city buzzed around us, taxis honking, footsteps hurrying past, but all I could think of was Elena. Her laugh, her bedtime stories, her future. A few months passed after the trial. I didn't seek updates about Oriana. I had closed that chapter. My world now revolved around Elena, her preschool projects, our weekend visits to the park, pancake Sundays, and movie nights on the couch with her curled against me. But word about Oriana spread quickly. In New York's business circles, whispers turned into headlines. A mutual friend messaged one afternoon, "Did you see this?" At first, I ignored it, but curiosity won. I clicked the link. Millionaire entrepreneur Oriana Collins embroiled in affair scandal. Her name, once spoken with admiration and envy, now trailed scandal and disgrace. Partners pulled out. Clients fled. The image she'd carefully curated, strong, poised, untouchable, was unraveling fast. The courtroom loss, the affair, the lies, they had all come out. And then came the deeper reports. One expose revealed her extravagant company expenses: first-class flights, five-star hotels, business gifts that were nothing more than luxury items. It all came under scrutiny. Shareholders were furious, demanding audits, demanding answers. I pictured her sitting in her glass office, watching the empire she built crumble from within, cold stares from her team, silent phones, inboxes filled with rejection. She had once looked me in the eye and said, "You'll end up with nothing." But now, she was the one left standing in ruins. I saw a brief clip of her on the evening news standing outside her building, reporters shouting questions. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. She forced a smile. "We'll get through this," she said, her voice trembling. But I could tell she didn't believe it. Just a few months after the trial, Oriana lost more than just her reputation. She lost the company, her influence, the lifestyle she had weaponized against me. Mutual friends said she sold her car, pawned her jewelry, moved out of the Manhattan apartment. She was now living alone in a modest place somewhere in the suburbs, far from the glamour, the spotlight, the illusion of power. I didn't feel joy or vengeance, just a dull ache of regret, not for me, but for Elena, for the mother I once hoped she'd have. One evening, as I tucked Elena into bed, she looked up at me with wide eyes. "Will Mommy come back, Daddy?" she asked softly. I paused, brushing her hair from her forehead. "Mommy loves you, sweetheart," I said gently. "But she needs time." Elena nodded. She didn't cry, but her eyes, those wise, innocent eyes, showed she understood far more than a 4-year-old should. I hugged her tightly, kissing her forehead. "No matter what," I whispered, "I'm always here." And I meant it. After the divorce was finalized, I bought a house in Brooklyn. Not too big, but warm, peaceful. A place where the light poured in through the windows each morning. A home with a little backyard where Elena could run and laugh. A kitchen where we could bake cookies together. A room with walls she could cover in stickers and drawings. It was just enough. Enough for Elena and me. It had a backyard where Elena could play, a space just big enough for a swing, and a small patch of grass she liked to call her garden. I added a bench beside it, where I'd sit with a book or a cup of coffee while she chased butterflies or painted rocks. There was a small extra room in the house. I turned it into a workspace, modest but enough for managing my portfolio. I didn't return to Wall Street, and I didn't miss it. The market still danced in my mind, and the $12 million I'd built over the years now quietly worked for us in the background. Money was no longer a concern. Time was. Every morning, I held Elena's tiny hand as I walked her to school. She'd wave at me at the gate, her smile bright as sunlight. That smile, it was everything. I attended every parent meeting, baked crooked cupcakes and slightly lopsided birthday cakes for her class. Sometimes I'd end up with flour in my hair and frosting on the ceiling. But Elena loved it. And when she laughed deep belly laughs that made her hiccup, I'd find myself laughing too, like I hadn't in years. Elena drew constantly. Her little hands were always covered in crayon dust or paint. I hung every drawing proudly on the fridge and walls: trees, stick houses, rainbows. Sometimes she drew 3 figures: herself, me, and a faint third shape. A woman. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. I knew it was Oriana. I let Elena hold on to her mother in her own way. I never spoke badly of Oriana. I couldn't. She was Elena's mother. That part of her life would always be sacred. But me? I started living again. Not as the Malcolm from Wall Street. Not as Oriana's Malcolm. Just as Elena's Malcolm. I signed up for a cooking class at the community center. Tried making sourdough bread once half the loaf came out hard as a rock. Elena laughed so hard she rolled on the floor, clutching her stomach. "You tried, Daddy," she said between giggles. "But maybe we leave the bread to the bakery." I laughed too. And it felt good. Real. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who had never judged me for leaving my career behind. They came over sometimes for coffee or dinner. They saw me smiling, really smiling, and they didn't ask questions. That was enough. There were moments when thoughts of Oriana crept in shadows that passed across my mind. But the pain wasn't sharp anymore. I had forgiven. Not for her. For me. I didn't want to be a man who carried bitterness. Elena needed a strong, present father. That's who I was becoming. One quiet evening, Elena curled on the couch beside me, her head on my lap. She was wrapped in a fuzzy blanket, her fingers tangled in the hem of her pajama shirt. She looked up at me with sleepy eyes. "Daddy, will we be okay?" I stroked her hair gently and leaned down. "More than okay, sweetheart," I said. "We have each other." A year had passed since the trial when my phone buzzed one afternoon. A message. From Oriana. "Malcolm, can we meet, please?" I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. My heart tightened, paused. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to leave the past buried. But another part, the quieter, curious part, wanted to know why. In the end, I agreed. We met at a small cafe just a block from my house. Elena and I came there often for cookies and milk. That day, it felt different, colder, heavier. Oriana arrived late. She looked like a ghost of the woman I once knew. Her suit hung looser than it used to. Her hair was tied in a messy bun. Her eyes, once fierce and commanding, were rimmed with fatigue. She sat across from me, her fingers twisting in her lap. "Malcolm," she began, her voice barely low. "I'm sorry." I said nothing. I waited. She looked up at me, her face strained with emotion. "I was wrong," she said. "So wrong. About you. About everything. I destroyed everything we had. It's all my fault." Her voice cracked. She talked about the company's collapse, her so-called friends disappearing, the endless spiral of bad press and empty bank accounts. She described nights spent in silence, crying in a dim apartment that once felt like a punishment. "I lost everything," she said, her eyes finally meeting mine, red, sincere. Then she added, voice trembling, "But I don't want to lose you and Elena." I listened, but my heart didn't stir. I remembered her words, sharp, slicing spoken in Stanford, then in our apartment, and finally in that cold courtroom. Leech. Useless. Penniless. I remembered Elena in that hotel hallway, clutching her teddy bear, waiting with a smile that never reached her mother. That image still haunted me. Across the table, Oriana wiped her tears, her hands trembling as she reached out to grab mine. Malcolm, she whispered, we can start over. I'll change. I love you. I love Elena. Please give me a chance. I gently but firmly pulled my hand away. Oriana, I said, my voice low but steady, I gave you everything. My career, my time, my love. I stood by you when no one else would. I sacrificed without ever asking for more than respect. She looked at me, eyes wide with sorrow, but I didn't stop. You threw it all away. You broke something that can't be put back together. I don't hate you. I really don't. But I can't go back. Elena needs stability. And I need a life without pain. Her lips trembled, her voice cracking. I have nothing, Malcolm, she pleaded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Please don't abandon me. I stood slowly, placing enough cash for both our coffees on the table. You'll find your path, Oriana, I said quietly, but it's not with me. I walked out. I didn't look back. And with every step, I felt something lift, something heavy that had clung to me for too long. The Brooklyn sky was open and bright. Autumn had painted the world gold and amber. In the backyard, Elena danced under the trees, her arms outstretched, trying to catch the falling leaves before they touched the ground. I sat on the old wooden bench with a cup of cooling coffee in my hand, watching her laugh free, full of life. That laughter was my compass. The only sound that could truly soothe the scars left behind. It's been 2 years since the trial. Since I walked out of that courtroom with Elena in my arms and the truth behind me like a shadow finally left behind. And I've changed. Not because of money. Not because of a courtroom victory. But because I finally started living true to myself. Looking back, I once thought love meant sacrificing everything, giving until you were empty for the person you cherished. And I did that. I gave up my career, set aside my pride, stood behind Oriana so she could shine, and built a quiet world for Elena so she could grow up safe. And I don't regret those years. They taught me something powerful. Love isn't about possession. It's about giving freely, without keeping score. But I also learned something else. Something harder. Love, no matter how deep, cannot survive without respect. Oriana didn't just betray me. She betrayed Elena. She betrayed everything we built. I never told Elena the whole truth. She's still young. And I want her to carry the good parts of her mother in her heart, even if they're just scattered fragments from a time long past. Sometimes she asks, her voice soft as she hugs her bear, Daddy, do you think Mommy will come back? And I always hold her close and say, Mommy loves you, sweetheart. But she has her own path. I'll always be here. Forever. As for Oriana, I don't know where she is now. After that last cafe meeting, she vanished from our lives. There were whispers she moved to Boston, started a small company, trying to rebuild. I didn't follow up. I didn't want to. I wish her peace. But our stories have split. Our paths have diverged for good. And now, I want to share this. Not just for Elena, but for anyone out there, anyone who's ever been overlooked, undervalued, or called names meant to tear them down. Don't let anyone define you. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent, a quiet worker, a dreamer who gave up everything for love, or someone fighting to rise again, you have worth. Don't wait for others to recognize it. Believe in yourself. Like I learned to believe in me. And if someone doesn't see your value, walk away. You deserve people who truly cherish you. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.